7 heads of cabbage, friends. That is what I just brought in from the garden, and let me tell you, it's a lot. If you're staring down a mountain of cabbage just like me, here are 4 delicious ways to make sure none of it goes to waste. And yes, one of them freezes beautifully. So come along with me as we process and harvest all of this homegrown cabbage. Hello friends, welcome back to Simply a Breeze. My name is Bree if you are new here. And we finally harvested our cabbage. I will take you back and show you how I harvested the cabbage, when I harvested the cabbage. I noticed that one of the heads had split on my morning walk, and that's just no good. As soon as it splits, it's time to harvest. Ideally, I should have picked it before it split, but such is life, only one split. We were able to get 6. There's still one out there, and it'll probably be harvested here in like another day or so. It's really close, but it didn't look ready at the time. So what we are going to be doing is, this whole video is I'm going to be showing you what I do with the cabbage harvest. This is my 2nd year successfully growing cabbages and actually having some sort of harvest to show for it. And one of my favorite things to make is sauerkraut. I love sauerkraut. I love the pre and the probiotic benefits of sauerkraut, but I also really just enjoy the flavor. We lived in Germany for a few years, and I really grew to love sauerkraut. And so now that I can make it at home, I'm definitely going to. So what we need to do is I have a recipe right here that we are going to follow. And this recipe is from the all-new Bald Book of Canning and Preserving. Let me take you in so you can take a look. It's this book. If you've been with me for a while, we have made a couple recipes out of this book already, particularly meals in a jar, because I love the convenience of meals in a jar. So this recipe calls for 2.5 pound to 3 pound cabbage. I'm debating doubling the recipe because we have 5 heads of cabbage to go through, but to be determined. Let's see what we got. So I have my scale here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to weigh to see how much cabbage I have. So this is about 2.5 pounds, this little cabbage. And this cabbage is about just 2 pounds. So, interesting. Hi, honey. What you doing?
Coming home.
I see this. How are you?
I'm good. You're recording.
I'm recording. All right, so this guy's just a little small, so we're going to reserve him, and we're going to go grab another cabbage. Thanks, love. All right, so here's another cabbage. Let's see what this one weighs. That one's also about 2.5. So we'll do the 2.5 pound cabbages. We will still now have 3 in the fridge. We're going to make egg roll in a bowl later this week, and I'm taking you along with. All right, so now that we know how much the cabbages weigh, we're going to do a couple of things. We are going to finely shred up this cabbage. That's my compost bowl. I have a knife. I have a clean cutting board. So I am making a raw cabbage, which means I'm not canning it, I'm not cooking it. All of the good beneficial bacteria is going to exist. So when we are doing a ferment like this, especially cabbage, where my hands are going to be all up in it, we need to make sure the surfaces are all clean. This is a clean container. The container that I'm going to let the cabbage ferment in, I just cleaned again to ensure it is completely cleaned. And I'm about to go wash my hands one more time because I've been touching some things, and I want to make sure my hands are as clean as possible. The key to this recipe is salt. So I'm actually going to go ahead and remove some of these outer leaves. I did rinse the cabbage when I brought it inside because it had some eggs on it from some sort of caterpillar, I think. I'm not 100% sure, so I rinsed it off. I removed damaged leaves initially, and I'm just going to go through as we go, and if I need to remove anything, I will. I may have to rinse this guy off again. Let's just see. And then this recipe also says to go ahead and preserve some of the outer leaves, because you're going to use these outer leaves to keep the shredded cabbage down so it can continue to ferment. So it looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and give this a rinse. We want cold water. Okay, we'll let that strain for a second. So now we're going to go ahead and remove some of these outer leaves, because these are a little damaged. If you see, something definitely got into our cabbage, but it should be okay. Such is the risk when you grow your own food and you try to be as organic about it as possible. Let's see. I feel okay with this. We're going to give this one a rinse as well. And now all I'm going to go do is let's go ahead and reserve some of these leaves now. So we're going to try and see if we can get a whole leaf off. Just like that. Okay, we're going to try and get another one. Now I'll show you why we need to do this step and why it's so important. And we'll rinse these one more time as well, just to make sure that they're nice and clean. Okay. We're going to cut this cabbage down the side. So if you look right here, I'm trying to avoid the core because we're going to cut the core out. The core is really hard to cut through. We're going to do the same here. Do the same. Same here. So you can clearly see right here, you can see the variation that this is super dense and super thick. So that's the core. We'll take this little piece off the top, and that's it. Right, and that can go in the compost. So next what we do is we're gonna go ahead and we're going to thinly chop all of this cabbage. And we're just going to go ahead, we're going to throw it in this bowl, because this bowl is what we're going to be mixing it in once I get all of the cabbage thinly sliced. And so while I get these two cabbages thinly sliced and into this bowl, let me take you back to us harvesting the cabbage. And then I will also show you, last night I went ahead and I made homemade coleslaw with the cabbage for our pulled barbecue sandwiches. Well, friends, this morning I had gone for a walk and I had discovered one of the heads of cabbages split. So we are harvesting. What we're looking at right there is the sacrificial cabbage, and that thing just got eaten alive by bugs and it actually never produced a head. But all of these other heads of cabbage, they're very tightly bound, they are ready, and then right here, there is that cabbage that's split. It hasn't split very much, so I'm really happy I looked and I walked the garden this morning. That way I could go ahead and get these cabbages harvested. I did go ahead and try to harvest the cabbage using some big old like garden shears, like pruners. However, they just didn't get wide enough, so I had to go get a kitchen knife to cut through the base of the cabbage. But this is what the cabbage looks like, all fresh and out of the garden. Clearly the leaves of the cabbages catch any debris that's flying around, and if you look closely, you can kind of see a whole bunch of stuff near the base. A lot of those are some sort of egg. I think there's like these green caterpillars. I see them all the time. I'll actually show you one here in a bit. But because I try to organic garden as much as possible, I don't spray anything, and I just hope that the pests aren't too bad. But some sort of greenish caterpillar thing, I believe that's what it is, lays eggs right at the base of the cabbages. It's happened a couple years now. There you go. See that green caterpillar right there? That's a bigger one. Most of the ones I was seeing were just a little bit smaller, which makes me wonder if that one was one that hatched from any of the eggs, but who knows. I did make sure to get the cabbages cleaned on up outside at the base before I brought them inside. But on this day, we got our cabbages harvested. They look beautiful. The bug damage wasn't too terrible for the ones that actually formed heads, but that one cabbage plant, it did go ahead and just get demolished, and that's okay. It kept the bugs from the other plants. Now on this day, Reed and I had a neighbor gift us some smoked pulled pork. And so we decided we were going to make pulled pork sandwiches, and oh, they were so good. But one of my favorite things to eat with a pulled pork sandwich is coleslaw. I love topping my pulled pork sandwiches with coleslaw, and so this was a really nice day for me to go ahead and use some of our homegrown cabbage to just dice and chop up some of our cabbage, and then I'm just chopping this up, and then we are going to go ahead and peel and chop or shred a carrot, I should say. Most coleslaw mixes, when you buy them in the store, they do come with a blend of green cabbage and red cabbage, but none of my red cabbages germinated this year, so we are just using the green cabbages, and it still tasted delicious. I have also gotten into the habit of making my own coleslaw dressing. This is not my own recipe. I will link the recipe I use down below. I'm pretty happy with the flavor profile and the fact that this recipe does not upset my tummy. I have purchased a coleslaw dressing from the store before, and it did not sit well, and I was not okay. So homemade coleslaw dressing has now been the way to go, and I'm very, very impressed with it. I did decide on this day not to look at the recipe, just to go ahead and pour things until I thought the flavor worked, and I probably should have more closely followed the recipe. I'm new to making my own dressings, so this was a little bit of trial and error. As you see, I keep adding things to get it to what I want, but the recipe will be linked down below. I did also decide after adding the dressing to what I had already chopped up that I made way more dressing than I had cabbage and carrots shredded and chopped on up. So I did go ahead and add probably about this whole head of cabbage. I deemed that the whole head of cabbage was ultimately necessary, but I only think you see me add about 3/4 of it. I do ultimately add the entire head of cabbage just to help soak up that dressing, because the dressing is really good, but you don't need a lot of it for it to be like successful, or what's the word I'm looking for? You don't need a lot of the dressing, and I unfortunately made too much. So to balance it out, I had to use the whole head of cabbage. But this meal on this night was delicious, and homemade coleslaw comes together in a matter of 10 minutes. Alright friends, so we got all of our cabbage shredded on up. It looks like a lot of cabbage. The thing with this recipe is we're going to go ahead and now add salt. We're going to knead the salt into the cabbage, and as you will see, I will update you along the way with the ferment. The cabbage is going to shrink, and this will reduce down to at least a third. It'll reduce down at least a third of what it is now. So now what we need to do, let's go ahead and check our recipe. Wash cabbage, reserve leaves, finely shred, gradually sprinkle 1.5 tablespoons of salt over the cabbage, and we're going to squeeze it into the cabbage. So we're going to go ahead and add 1, and remember, we doubled this recipe, okay? So we're going to need essentially 3 tablespoons of salt. So we'll go ahead and start with 2. we'll add the third as we go, once we get the cabbage down a little bit more. Let me take my watch off too. All it is massaging the salt into the cabbage. And this bowl looks like it's too big or too small. I promise you it's not. The salt is going to force the cabbage to release moisture. I also don't have a big enough, like, non-reactive bowl. I would prefer not to use a metal bowl for this, for a ferment. So we're gonna try and slowly incorporate the salt all throughout. And this is already released and compacted down a little bit. This table is clean. I did completely clean the table, but any cabbage that escapes, we're just gonna throw it to the compost, just to be on the safe side. Tablespoon of salt per the recipe. We'll get this mixed on in, and then we're gonna let this cabbage sit and continue to release moisture for about an hour. The instructions told me to go ahead and do this first massage until the cabbage starts to release some moisture, which it most definitely is. Now I'm just gonna make sure I get that last tablespoon of salt incorporated. And then we're gonna go ahead and we're just gonna let this continue to release its water content. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and put a lid on this, and we're gonna set it aside, and I'm just gonna go ahead and get dinner going and kind of clean up my mess a little bit. Okay, so we have our fresh, clean towel right here. We're gonna go ahead and use cold water, and we're gonna make sure we clean these leaves off really, really well. I don't know if I want to use that one. I think I pulled too many off. That's totally fine. I'd rather have a selection than not have a selection. So it's been about 1.5 hours later. Reed and I went ahead and ate dinner. That did not harm the cabbage at all to sit a little bit longer than normal. It did, as you can see right here, it is releasing quite a bit of moisture, which is exactly what we want. So I'm just giving it one more really good knead to see if I can get more liquid out, because this liquid is about to be incredibly important. The key with ferments is you want all of the food and the solids to be under the liquid line. So the liquid is incredibly important here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and fill this jar, and then we're going to push down on this cabbage even more to release more of the liquid, because we want the cabbage to be under the liquid line. The instructions per the book did say that it's okay if the cabbage is a little above the line for the first 24 hours. However, if no more moisture is released from the cabbage and we still see cabbage above the line, add liquid. And we did go ahead and make up an emergency brine for us later, for us to use later, just in case we didn't get enough brine. But as you can see, we've got more than enough liquid, and that brine that we made and have set aside, it is just going to act as a weight to keep the cabbage pushed down. This is also why the cabbage leaves were so important. So right here I'm going ahead and I'm pushing and I'm making sure the cabbage gets nice and compact, but also forcing it to release as much moisture as possible. And then I'm going to go ahead and add the cabbage leaves. So the cabbage leaves here are going to act as kind of like a barrier to keep all the small cabbage bits that we chopped up from floating to the top. So you layer in 1 or 2 really nice leaves, and then you shove them down the sides of the jar to kind of trap all of the other pieces of cabbage so they stay nice and secure under the water line. And now we are going to go ahead and add our extra brine, and it's just going to act as a weight to keep everything down. And that's it. Now we periodically go through every day. We look at it, make sure nothing is above the brine. We wipe the edges, scoop off any foam, and it's going to be like that for about 2 to 3 weeks. So it has been about 2 days since we put the sauerkraut in the cupboard, covered with a clean towel, and I'm just checking to make sure there's no excessive yeast buildup or anything, because we want to keep this mold free. If mold starts to grow, the whole thing has to be thrown away. So that's what we're inspecting here, and everything looks great. All right, we're back. Ignore my appearance. We're gonna be making egg roll in a bowl today. It needs to be made, really, is kind of where we're at. Okay, it looks like there's a hole in one of those bags, which is also good to know. So I pulled out extra ground pork. We're gonna be using Italian sausage. We're gonna put 3 pounds of it in this pot, and we're gonna put 1 pound of it in this pot. This pot is for freezer meal prep because I don't want the cabbage that we have to go to waste. And then whatever cabbage we have left over, I'm turning it into sauerkraut, and we're done with the cabbage harvest. So we've already made sauerkraut once. Whatever's left over, I'm gonna make another batch of sauerkraut. But we're gonna brown the meat for the freezer meals of egg roll in a bowl. And then this one is going to be for egg roll in a bowl tonight. And so we're gonna get the meat browning, and then while the meat is browning, we are also going to go ahead and chop up the cabbage that we need for this, which I think we're gonna do 3 heads of cabbage today. All I'm gonna do, the burner is not on, don't worry. I have not turned the burner on yet. And for the moment, I'm very happy about that. The reason I look like this, I'm not put together. Reed and I went hiking today, and it wasn't a terrible hike, but there was a lot of elevation gain. And I was pretty pooped when we got home, but we need to stop eating out. We've been pretty bad. So we came home, I got showered, I'm a little tired. I was not putting on a full face of makeup, and I was most definitely not getting all dressed up. So I apologize for my appearance, but you're getting very loungy Brie today. All right, so we're gonna throw this away. I'm gonna wash my hands, and then we'll get the burners on, and then we're gonna go deal with the cabbage. Okay. Sweet. That needs to be washed. So this head of cabbage was the reason we had to harvest the cabbage. It split. So I hope you can see that. Let's see. There you go. So the head of the cabbage did split. If you were to let that go, the cabbage would then go to flour, and that is how you get cabbage seed. However, I didn't want my cabbage to go to flour because I want to use it. So I've gone ahead and I've picked a lot of like the damaged outer leaves from bugs and stuff. And then I'm gonna double check that there's no like larvae. They like to get it at the base of the cabbage, which has been my experience because that's more exposed and easier access for them. Get this leaf off. That leaf looks a little damaged. Perfect. Good. We're also gonna chop the top off real quick. So I'm gonna cut pieces away from the core. We're gonna try and cut the core of the cabbage out. Boom. We'll cut off the top. And the core goes in the compost. And the core comes up pretty high here. There we go. And then we'll go ahead and chop the rest of this up the same way we did the sauerkraut. And we're going to do that with the rest of this cabbage. We're going to take this leaf too, because this leaf looks a little damaged. There we go. Let me see. Say what 1 head of cabbage is probably the equivalent of 2 bags of coleslaw mix, would you say? Can you see that? Yeah, I'd say by the time I'm done chopping this up, it's close to about 2 bags. Of pre-shredded coleslaw mix. So maybe I'll only do 2 heads of cabbage. 2 heads per, or 1 head per 2 pounds of meat. That sounds perfect to me. Do this, guys. So we'll get this cleaned on up. Now we're gonna slice up the next head of cabbage. Perfect. Yeah, I think that's plenty of cabbage for these 4 recipes. Perfect. Okay, so one of the last things we need to do is shred up some carrots. I'm just going to use all of these so I can get them used on up. We're going to use our cheese grater to just go ahead and grate the carrots. A lot of coleslaw mix has carrots and a combination of green and red cabbage. I tried to start red cabbage this year. It did not want to germinate. I tried. These carrot ends, and the peels, I didn't feel like washing the carrots twice. You could save those for broth later. I just don't have the energy to worry about that right now, if I'm completely honest. Alright, so those are looking really good. They are close to being done, so let me see if I can find this recipe. Okay. Oops. We need to dice up an onion, and we need garlic, and we've got the shredded carrots, and then we're going to need onion powder, ginger, red pepper flakes, soy sauce, sesame oil. Okay. So the recipe says to go ahead and add all of those ingredients to the freezer meal bag. The difference is we're not cooking the coleslaw mix for the freezer meal, but we are going to go ahead and cook the coleslaw for dinner tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and add, let's go get an onion diced on up. We're going to measure out our ginger, our red pepper flakes. And then we're good for dinner tonight, and then everything else we'll do once that cools. So that's our diced onion. It's really interesting, it calls for diced onion and onion powder. We will also dice up the onion for this to go in the freezer once it's time to bag everything up. I don't like letting onions sit diced for too long. Honestly, I don't like storing them in the fridge either, but that trick, storing it in a mason jar, does really help. So the recipe calls for, let me put it right here so I can actually read it. We need, not you, 2 red pepper flakes. How much? We need half a teaspoon. Red pepper flakes. We need ginger. It says 1 to 2 teaspoons of ginger. I like ginger in this. So I'm for sure going to do, let's do like 1 1/2. So we'll finish this guy off. Okay. We need salt. We're going to add a teaspoon of salt. Get some garlic in there. Recipe calls for minced garlic. It says 4 cloves, so we're going to do 2 teaspoons because that's the equivalent. It smells so good in here. Down because I don't want to burn the garlic. Okay. So that's done. We're going to let it cool. Recipe also calls for 2 tablespoons of sesame oil. It's a lot of sesame oil. So we're just going to be real generous. Yeah, holy buckets. We'll see what we think with that. Also calls for soy sauce. I don't do soy sauce. I do coconut aminos. And we got the Costco size. Costco size coconut aminos. We'll see if we like this. I've never tried this brand before. If I don't like it, I just won't get it again. This also calls for a 1/4 cup. It's going to take a second. Sure. Okay, so we got all the ingredients added. Now what we're going to do is we are actually going to go ahead and add the coleslaw and carrot mix. Turn the heat up on that a little bit. And I'm going to add about 1/3 of this batch into this bowl, or into this pan. Because this is going to cook down quite a bit. And I'm actually only going to make 2 recipes out of that other batch. So I like things to be a little meatier. So I did take some of the meat from that batch and put it into here. I'm pro high protein. Let's see. what that yields us. There we go. Okay, we're gonna put a lid on here so it helps the cabbage cook down. And now I'm gonna clean up my mess. So we're gonna go ahead and get the coleslaw and the carrot mixture put into bags. That way that's already portioned out. And then all I need to do is add the meat. We'll probably add the seasonings while we're waiting for the cabbage and the carrots to cook down for dinner tonight. Okay, so we'll put there, put that there. I almost forgot I had these. I'm really happy I remembered. And I'm not measuring. I'm just gonna try and evenly distribute handfuls. I feel like I added looks about even, I think, between the two of these. Sure, why not? The stuff on the bottom is sizzling away, so we're gonna try and incorporate the coleslaw mix now that it's had a little bit to sweat. Oh, this smells really good though. I am hungry, so that's probably adding to it, which is phenomenal. I'll turn that down a little bit. We don't need to be super hot anymore. Put the lid back on and we'll let this continue to cook down. Alright, so we need to go ahead and now add, do I do this now or do I do this? I'm going to do the rest of this when it's ready to be put in the freezer and the beef has cooled down. So for now we're just going to do this and we're going to stick it in the fridge. Alright friends, the egg roll in a bowl is looking real good. The cabbage is cooked down really nice. I want to give this a taste test to see what it's missing, especially because I didn't measure anything. A little bit of the juice, a little bit of cabbage, a little bit of meat. It's definitely good on the salt. I'm gonna say it's good. I don't know what else to add to this. Let me check another recipe just to make sure I'm not missing something. Because there could be a seasoning that we're missing. Let's see, whoops. Let's see what this one says. Ginger, coconut aminos. It's got garlic in here, red pepper flakes. No, we're set. We're good to go. That is seasoned beautifully. It tastes really good. It's gonna taste really good over rice, so we're gonna eat this over rice, but if you are doing low carb, no carb, you can eat it just like this. We've totally eaten it just like this. It's really good. We also really like to add like a Grey Poupon spicy kind of mustard to it, and it just adds like another depth of flavor. You know when you go to the Chinese restaurant and they give you mustard? Very similar concept. So dinner is ready. We're gonna go ahead and eat. That meat is still cooling down. All we need to do is dice up an onion, put all the seasonings and the soy sauce or coconut aminos and toasted sesame oil into those bags, and they are ready to go in the freezer, and we will have freezer meal prepped, 2 freezer meals that are just a nice convenience to have. So let me go let Reed know that dinner is ready, and I'll show you how we dish this up. If you've never tried homemade egg roll in a bowl, I highly encourage you to go ahead and give it a shot. This was really easy to make, and it was fun that I used homemade ingredients. And I'm super excited to test this out as a freezer meal. I will let you know how that turns out. We have yet to dip into it, but that is going to be a wonderful convenience to have on hand, especially because I'm not always going to have cabbage on hand either. So I'm looking forward to this, and this meal was just absolutely delicious. Once Reed and I ate, I went ahead and got the onion diced up for the freezer meal bag. So I put half of an onion in one and half of an onion in the other. And then next we are going ahead and we are putting 1.5 teaspoons of ginger per bag. And then we go ahead and we add our red pepper flakes. This is the toasted sesame oil. I don't think I had enough for both bags, so I may have to add more when it comes time for me to cook. Then we're going to go ahead and add our 1/4 cup of coconut aminos. If you like soy, this is where you would use soy instead of coconut aminos. I just do not do soy when possible. So I'm going to go ahead and try and evenly distribute that. And then lastly, we are going to go ahead and get our garlic added. So I'm adding about the equivalent of 4 minced garlic cloves. And then I'm evenly distributing the ground sausage as well. I don't remember how this worked out, but between 4 pounds of ground meat, we got 3 whole meals and 2 went into the freezer. These bags look beautiful. These are going to be wonderful convenience items for us to have on hand here in the future, and I look forward to giving them a shot. Hello friends, welcome back to the last recipe we are making with this cabbage that we harvested from the garden. So I have about half of a cabbage here that's just kind of been sitting in the fridge needing to be used up. And one of the things that I absolutely love to eat is the pre-packaged like Asian crunch salad, the salad kit, and I think it's phenomenal. But I realized we have cabbage on hand, so I figured why not try to replicate that? So I went ahead and I got some green onion. I got some cilantro because we are not in cilantro right now. And I bought the rest of the ingredients. It called for almonds and it called for sesame oil, and I was officially out of sesame oil. So all I'm doing is getting this chopped up into like bite-sized pieces. And don't mind the outfit. I was just out in the garden for like 2 hours getting some more beans planted, pulling up the cabbage leftovers, and pulling out the peas that have completely dried up because I'm putting pole beans there. And then I was pulling weeds and doing some maintenance with the tomatoes, and I was disgusting, so I showered, and my plan once I make this recipe is to eat dinner, put my feet up, and just relax for the rest of the evening. So I am in full-on lounge gear. I'm comfortable, I'm happy with it. So you get comfy Brie today. But let's see. This should be enough cabbage for a salad for me. I'm sure Reed will indulge as well when he gets home. Okay. Let me pull out the cilantro and some of the green onions. All right, so I have some green onions here. I just put my compost bin away and I should not have done that. So I'm gonna peel the outer layer of the green onion. What I did was I went ahead and I cut some green onions on a bias. However, my camera died. I didn't realize. So we have green onions that are already chopped up. I don't know if I rinsed the cilantro. We don't need all of this cilantro. So I'm going to take a little bunch, like a couple stems. There we go. I'll take you. So we'll go rinse these. We'll wrap this back up in the towel. It's going to keep the cilantro kind of fresh, and we'll find a way to use this up before it starts to go bad. And then we're going to shove it in a bag. And this is also how you keep these two things decently fresh for longer. Now I'm going to go rinse this. Okay, our cilantro is rinsed. There is an ugly leaf here that I don't like. I'm actually going to go ahead. Oh, okay, Boots. So I'm actually going to pull, because this isn't a lot, I'm going to pull the leaves off of the stems. I don't want the stems in this. Oh my goodness. If you are not somebody who enjoys the smell of cilantro, you could always negate it. I just know it is a flavor, and it is an herb. It's a prominent flavor profile within this salad. Plus, I absolutely love cilantro, so it didn't really take me much convincing, but if you are not one of those people, you can negate the cilantro. Throw that together. Boots is just having a good old time. I don't know if you can hear him, but he's being quite loud. Okay, now it's time to go check my recipe because now I don't know what else I need to add. All right, so we have a carrot that we have peeled. We're gonna go with the bigger grate, I guess. And we are gonna go ahead and shred some carrot. Just one little carrot, since this isn't a whole lot of cabbage. The recipe that I'm using as a guide that I found online calls for 3 cups of cabbage, 3 cups of green cabbage and 3 cups of red cabbage. I just don't have that much on hand, and so we're gonna adapt, but I will link the inspiration recipe for this salad. The next thing we are gonna make is the dressing. So this calls for sesame oil, rice vinegar, 2 tablespoons of honey, and my honey is crystallized. So I'm going to try and scoop out the honey now so I can go ahead and melt it real quick to help it incorporate into this dressing. Come on, you can do it. I may need a knife. We're like scraping the bottom at this point. We'll call that about a tablespoon. So now we need a whole other tablespoon. Let's try a knife. Knife baby. More helpful. So we can get to the bottom. Great. So we'll set that aside with the knife there. We're gonna go melt this. There we go. Our honey is nice and melted. Now we need 4 tablespoons of sesame oil, if I can get this open. Oh, sweet. So we've got a tablespoon measure here. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops. I'm gonna try not to make a ginormous mess. No guarantees though. I'm getting pretty hungry. We're gonna do 4 tablespoons of rice vinegar. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And we got the honey in there, and then it says some lime juice, which I do have. We have some Santa Cruz. 2. Let's see. And this recipe also calls for fresh ginger. I don't have any on hand, and I couldn't find any at the store. So we are just gonna sprinkle some ginger in there. That should be the equivalent for dried ginger. I'm gonna go throw this in the sink, and now we need salt and we need pepper. And it says 1 teaspoon of salt or to taste. I doubt I'll have an issue with a teaspoon of salt in here. And half a teaspoon of pepper. Okay, let's grab this spoon. See if we can get this all nice and incorporated. Oh goodness. Let's see if we can get the ginger. I may have to get a whisk to get the ginger to incorporate nicely. Let's go ahead and give this sauce a taste test. Let's see if it needs anything else. I don't feel it's incorporated very well. We're gonna take this spoon out. So I have a blender bottle. This should help get everything nice and emulsified. Now let's give her a try. The honey was it. It needed to be emulsified. It was not emulsified well. Okay, so I'm gonna clean up my mess real quick. I'm going to mix this salad as well, and then I'm gonna put it into a bowl, and then we'll add our dressing. We're gonna add some slivered almonds. All right, my pork chop is reheating, or it's reheated. I just need to take it out of the microwave. Now what we're gonna do is we're just gonna go ahead and portion out what we want, and then we're gonna go ahead and add our sauce. I absolutely love this salad, so we'll leave it at that. That's good. Got a package of slivered almonds here, or sliced almonds. They're not slivered. I'm also not going to add the almonds to this. We'll just keep it in the salad, and we'll add every time we go to serve. And see what that, oh, this smells so good. I'm really, really excited to give this a try. Moment of truth, it's time for a taste test. Let's see, let's get an almond in there. There we go. An almond, we got some cabbage, some dressing. Wow, that's good. I'm really happy I gave this a try. And the fact that it's a homegrown cabbage, even better. Well, that meal whipped up beautifully, or this side salad. I have actually eaten this salad, the whole kit, as a lunch. If I wanted something light. So you could always just eat a salad, add a little bit of protein. That's kind of what I'm doing tonight. I'm just not mixing my protein with the salad, but I am having just protein in a salad. But if you're ever looking for ways to use up your cabbage, you can get so creative, and I'm really happy I thought of this one because this is about to become a new favorite. I have used up the cabbages that we have grown now at this point. However, there are farmers, there's local farmers markets that I can go and get local fresh cabbage, because this is definitely going to be on the menu until cabbage season ends. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being here. If you have a recipe that you love to use cabbage with, I would love to hear about it. Please put it down in the comments below, because I'm always looking for new ways to use up the food that we grow. So thanks for being here, and thanks for being here, and I will see you all next time. Bye.